Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is Transfers Live, or this is Stretford Paddock Live, should I say, because we're not focusing too much on transfers today. We are missing, there is a Jay Motti-shaped hole, I will appreciate that. However, he'll be back next week, and we've got the news to go through, so we're all going to be fine. Get in the comments, get in the chat, let me know your thoughts. We've got more updates on the Mason Greenwood situation, which seems to have sort of exploded into life over the last few hours. We'll be looking ahead at some transfers as well, some outs, and some potential ins as well, with Liverpool trying to sneak in on some of our dealings, which may well hinder United's chances of signing a midfielder this summer. We'll get into all of that. But first of all, good morning. I don't know why I said good morning. Good evening. Everyone's saying evening in the comments, so I said good morning. Right, let's start with this news. So we came before with the news that it was sort of a twofold news, wasn't it? Initially, we saw that article from Adam Crafton in The Athletic, and released almost simultaneously was this statement from Manchester United that reportedly had been sent internally and then also been put out externally as well. It was a slightly strange situation where you almost had the journalism of The Athletic and the PR branch of Manchester United kind of releasing what turned out to almost be a joint statement, or an article and a conjoined statement to that. The main body of that and the main idea behind that was that Richard Arnold had theoretically, or not theoretically, this TV is about to turn off, so let's sort that, had actually decided to bring Mason Greenwood back, but then, who's supposed to be brought back for the 4th of August, but then for some reason that had changed, which is obviously something that, you know, we're 12 days past the 4th of August now. We don't exactly know why that changed. We don't know what went into Richard Arnold either doing a U-turn or just changing the way he was doing things slightly, or maybe even changing his opinion entirely. But the initial reports were that, or the initial statement was that Richard Arnold had decided to bring Mason Greenwood back. And there was even some details on how they were going to do it. This is an update, and a sort of an addition to that information was that Ten Hag had also backed, or the idea of supporting Greenwood's return into the squad. So you see here, Manchester United told senior staff that Mason Greenwood will return. The Athletic's been repeatedly told that the club's football operations department, including Murtagh and head coach Erik Ten Hag, are supportive of Greenwood's reintegration. During the club's pre-season tour, Ten Hag was asked about Greenwood and said he had given his view on the matter internally. He did not state his view publicly, but obviously he is part of this sort of umbrella term, as we see there, football operations department. Now, I don't know whether, reading that, it says there, the club's football operations department, including Murtagh and Ten Hag, had given their support of his reintegration. Whether that means this part of the club, which happens to include Ten Hag and Murtagh, had as a whole agreed to him coming back, or whether it means the club's footballing department and Murtagh and Ten Hag specifically have given their green light to him coming back. It's hard to know exactly what is meant by that, if you understand the point. Are they talking about this part of the club as a whole, of which Ten Hag is a smaller part, or are they saying Ten Hag himself has said he wants him back, Murtagh himself has said he wants him back, and the football department as a whole has said he wants him back? Because I think it is an interesting slight sort of detail there, but obviously he is part of that department. It wouldn't go past him without his opinion, and obviously he's admitted he'd given his opinion, he just hadn't given it publicly. But it seems that the Athletic are reporting, and they're going strongly on this as well. There's no, our sources suggest, they are saying it as though this has happened, this is definite. There's no reports suggest, or, you know, we're hearing or any of this. They are laying this out as fact. And weirdly, I haven't got United's statement in front of me, although I can get it. The United kind of go about sort of going around the perimeter of denying it, if you know what I mean. They sort of seem like they're denying it, but at the same time aren't quite denying it, which is slightly strange. So let's get into some of the quotes from United's statement before we move on to talk about. There's been a comment from Adidas, now obviously United's main kit sponsor, and some employee backlash as well. But so here's the update from United. or a segment of it. This is drawn on extensive evidence and context, not not in the public domain, and we have heard from numerous people with direct involvement or knowledge of the case. Throughout this process, the welfare and perspective of the alleged victim has been central to the club's inquiries, and we respect her right to lifelong anonymity. It also says, the fact-finding phase of our investigation is now complete, and we are in the final stages of making a decision on Mason's future. Contrary to media speculation, that decision has not yet been made and is currently the subject of intensive internal deliberation. Responsibility ultimately rests with the Chief Executive Officer. So it says there that the decision hasn't been made, but then also it says that they're in the final stages. So obviously we are some way towards a decision. I just feel as though it would be a big, big statement for the Athletic to go out and say what they've said and not know that it's true. I would be really, really shocked that, if Richard Arnold hadn't been hadn't made a decision that was to bring him back. And there was even reports in this article, in the full article, read it yourself obviously if you want the full details, but I'll sort of paraphrase. There were even reports of Richard Arnold recording a pre-recorded message to announce the comeback, about talking about how he wouldn't do work with any of United's sponsors or any of the sort of external kind of media obligations, that Mason Greenwood wouldn't be part of any of those. These are the plans and these are the ideas of someone that is certainly entertaining the idea of him coming back. The details, for them to be that sort of particular, I would be very surprised if the Athletic had sort of made that up. I'm sure they trust their sources, and typically, as we all are pretty aware, you can trust the Athletic. A lot of their journalists, David Ornstein, Laurie Whitwell, Carl Anker, all reputable, Adam Crafton as well, but obviously we're talking about him. It's not just him, the whole organisation is very well reputed. So I'd be shocked if they're making this up. It seems to me United have sort of shit the bed a little bit and are panicking. This idea that they haven't yet made a decision just seems like nonsense, because we saw every single outlet, the BBC, the Telegraph, the Athletic, everyone reporting a week or so ago that this will be announced, this decision on Mason Greenwood will be announced before the start of the Premier League season. Everyone reported that. So who gave them that information? You don't see the BBC reporting things unless it is absolutely concrete. Someone told the bulk of the journalists that we listen to in Britain that the decision would be made before the start of the Premier League season. It has since not been made. Obviously, United played 2 days ago and there's been no decision made. So something has changed. Something was done or thought to be done and now isn't done. I think it's more likely that United are turning things around and trying to change their opinion than the Athletic have got this one wrong. We've got loads of comments, of course. But Curlers 87 said they leaked it to soften the blow. That wouldn't surprise me. This is the thing you got to remember is, if Manchester United are to bring Mason Greenwood back, I'm trying to think, this is probably the most difficult PR job of whoever is in charge of this PR, the PR push that would go along with bringing Mason Greenwood back. This is the most difficult job they've had in their life, almost undoubtedly. So every tactic you can imagine, every way of tweaking things, every way of slipping something out there, every way of getting public opinion, every way to do it, they will be employing everything you can possibly imagine. Because this isn't just like, oh, United have got a new kit, let's put a couple of pictures on social media. This is the most sensitive and critical PR push that Manchester United have done in decades. I wouldn't rule anything out as an option that United are trying with this one, because, like I said, it doesn't get more of a tightrope than this. There's so many people that's gonna hate the idea of Mason Greenwood coming back to Manchester United, and I'll be honest, myself included. But there are plenty of people in that sort of middle ground who kind of think, well, I can who they need to get on side for this to work. United will be trying every single tactic they possibly can, one of which will obviously be judging what the fans and what the public and what social media think of the idea of bringing him back. And maybe that's how they've done this. Who knows? There's a lot going on here. Obviously, the comments are particularly active. We've got a super chat as well. I mean, this is the opinion of Big Dog. He said, if Mason is undergoing rehabilitation, he needs to put his money where his mouth is, forego 12 months of his salary, and United should keep it and give it to domestic violence charities. I think, thank you for the chat, obviously. I think that is not nearly enough, to be honest. I think the idea of, he can play again, but he's given a bit of money to charity is still an absolute slap in the face when you think about the idea that he's been paid to do nothing for the last 18 months, 12 months salary, which is more than most people would earn in their entire lives, is hardly a slap on the wrist for someone who's, a multi-millionaire. Anyway, let's move on to the second part of this then. So this is obviously Ten Hag. He seems to be back in this. He seems to be, certainly whether it's explicit or implicit, as part of the footballing team, he is willing to reintegrate Mason Greenwood back into the squad. Next up is from Adidas. Adidas have made a statement on their role in the Greenwood decision-making process. So I think since this statement came out and since this, it's kind of been bubbling up, hasn't it, over the last couple of weeks. There was the pictures of Mason Greenwood back in training. There's then obviously been the protests and the statements from multiple different fan groups. There's then obviously been the backlash against that, against some of the United's women's players for whatever reason. Then there's been this statement this article from The Athletic, the statement from United. We're seeing a real sort of crescendo we're building towards, which is obviously an actual decision from United. This is now Adidas weighing in on the whole situation. They've said, Adidas have made a statement, they said, after inaccurate and speculative reports within the media, it's important for us to reiterate that Adidas plays no role in any decisions made regarding any member of the team or staff at the club. Decisions are exclusively between the club and their employees. Any question relating to the players and the operations of the club, we would refer to Manchester United. We are aware of the topic and are in contact with the club. We have no comment to provide at this time. So they're very much saying, don't come after us. It's not our choice. We're not part of it. However, obviously they will have to decide whether to continue to support United if Mason Greenwood was to return. We've got a super chat from Jibak. He said, Joe, which course of action do you feel is the harder one for the club to take? Let him go or to have to justify why we are retaining him? I mean, I think it's an easy decision to let him go personally. Having to justify why you're retaining him is so much harder, I think, than letting him go. And I just think and I don't want this, I've said my opinion on this multiple times on the channel, and I'm not going to always, bring my thoughts into it, and I will allow obviously anyone else to have their opinions on the situation on the channel. But I just think United especially, and not that we're I would expect any club to do any different, but I've always felt like United, at least growing up, had this air of we do things the right way, we do things properly, we don't tolerate things. It's traditionally a left-wing club with quite sort of progressive values. And the idea that that would sort of abandon all of that for a player who's quite good at football, to me would be a real slap in the face. I think that would be a terrible look for United. And just shit, to be honest. And you think all of the things that United in the past have sort of stood for and all of this, and then, because let's be honest, if this was a different player, if this was, someone in their 30s or someone that was on the periphery of the squad, they wouldn't be supporting him. He'd be out. So it's only because we value the potential of Mason Greenwood on the football pitch that we're potentially willing to sort of turn a blind eye to what's gone on. And I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I think that, it shouldn't be a case of does the footballing ability outweigh the crime. That's just absolutely insane. He's done something that should mean he never plays for Manchester United again, regardless of how talented or what potential he has. And to me, that shouldn't change just because he came through the academy or he's only a young lad. Forget all that. So yeah, I think to answer your question, I think it would be a lot harder to justify why they're retaining him than to let him go. You lose a few million quid potentially, but what's that worth in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at the reputation of a 150-year-old institution? I think that's very much worth it. Let's move on to the third part of this then. This is backlash from employees and supporters. There have been numerous employees within United and fans who have expressed disdain. So this is another part of that same article talking about how there are sort of internal struggles at Manchester United over this situation, which there was always bound to be, regardless of which way United went with things. And obviously we still don't know for certain, but this Athletic article, and I've seen very little reporting saying that United are leaning on or leaning towards letting Mason Greenwood leave, and I've seen quite a bit that say they're leaning towards letting him stay. So I would be very shocked at this point if that didn't happen. Multiple employees within United are deeply troubled and feel a sense of shame by the plan laid out for Mason Greenwood, and they say they feel the club has not fostered an environment where major decisions by senior personnel can be freely challenged. On Monday night, some United supporters protested against Greenwood's possible return at Old Trafford and had a banner made. United's colours sported the message. And a banner made in United's colours sported the message: female fans demand no Greenwood return, end violence against women. Yeah, I think it was always going to be the case, wasn't it? There was going to be people that didn't like this idea of, I mean, either way, and obviously there's going to be people who don't like the idea of him playing for Manchester United again. Yeah, obviously the comments is just absolutely popping off. Mark Ennis says, Joe, sick of listening to your opinions on this. Would you, well, I mean, the rest of your comment is absolutely ridiculous. If you're sick of hearing my opinions on it, stop listening to me. I'm not going to change my opinion just because you're sick of it. And like I said, I'm not going to only talk about my opinion, and other people's opinions on this channel aren't coming out of my mouth. I'm here to say my own opinion and no one else's, but I'm not going to change my opinion just because, you know, you're sort of worried about Mason Greenwood, or you're, you know, trying to make me change my opinion. That's not going to happen. So thank you for your comment though. Right, let's move on, shall we? Obviously this is going to carry on, and we're, you know, there's plenty to talk about. There's still plenty to learn as well, because United have been conducting this investigation, which according to them goes well beyond the sort of partial evidence or small amount of evidence, or whatever it was, the phrasing they used, that we've seen publicly. I would like to see the full reasoning behind it. And I think Carl Anker made a great point on Twitter as well. I don't like the idea of this pre-recorded message. I think this is such a big moment, such a big point. This, whatever this is, should be live. It should be to reporters, to fans. People need to be able to ask questions about this. It can't just be a 3-minute video where someone gives everything from their side and gives no chance for anyone else to have any retort whatsoever. You know, all the word is that this is on Richard Arnold. For such a long time, United fans have had problems with the Glazers and the owners, and one of the many problems, was the fact that you never hear from them, they're never held accountable, you never see them, you never get to speak to them, you never get to ask them anything. They are this sort of mysterious one-way figure that sort of lurks in the shadows at the club. And the idea that this sort of new generation of leadership with Murtagh and Arnold would then, in such a big moment, take the coward's way out of just doing this one-sided, one-way, you know, we're looking through the mirror and you can't see us, way of announcing it, I think would be a real sign that things haven't moved in the direction that we maybe hoped under this sort of, you know, I know it's still the Glazers, but we got a new chief exec, we got a new chief of football as well. And what's changed if even on these biggest decisions, there's no way for United fans and the media to have their questions as well about it? Because basically, then it's just going to fall on Ten Hag, isn't it? The next press conference, he's going to be answering the questions that, fair enough, he should answer as well. But Richard Arnold, everything is said. It literally says in Manchester United's statement, he will make the final decision. He should stand accountable and explain that decision, and people should be able to question him on it. There's some super chats coming in. I've obviously sort of, with the sensitivity of the subject, I'm trying to read them as and before I'm reading them out loud, just to make sure that nothing too difficult is being said. Big Dog says, I wonder how much of the internal investigation with the public will be public. My original decision was rip his contract, but interested to hear from Arnold. Nick Collins with the super chat says, I'm conflicted as a United fan about Greenwood. Yeah, I understand. I think a lot of people are conflicted. Jojo says, it's a minefield that should have been sorted in June. There's another point in it. Like, why are we waiting until the window's about to close so we can go, the window's closed, we can't sell him now, we probably should just play him, shouldn't we? And L says, sick society reflected by sick decisions like this. Yeah, I agree with you there. Right, let's move on. Should we have some transfers? Should we sort of lighten the mood a little bit with some transfers? Let's talk about Harry Maguire then, because we've seen in the last 24 hours that his potential move to West Ham looks to be off. This is from Simon Stone. I think David Ornstein tweeted this as well. He said, Harry Maguire's move to West Ham is off, with the defender intent on staying. Harry Maguire is intent on staying at Manchester United to fight for his place in the first team. A source close to Maguire said that while he respects West Ham and David Moyes, there was never an agreement in place over his personal terms. A source close to Maguire said, Harry, remains settled at United, loves the club and believes he will get plenty of opportunities to play this season. West Ham had a £30 million offer accepted for Maguire. I mean, I don't even know what to say really. I'm slightly conflicted on this. My overriding thing is just go, just leave, just take the offer, get out of here, man. Like, it's hard, isn't it? Because from the sort of like kind of self-respect side of things, you think you were the captain at United up until what, a month ago, 2 months ago, and now you're in a position where you're not even going to play. You're not really part of the manager's plans. That's clear. He's trying to sell you. They've accepted offers for you. It is slightly embarrassing. It's a bit of a bad look to then just be like, nah, actually, you know what, I'm quite happy to play on the bench. It's a slightly sad state of affairs where he's gone from being the most expensive defender in history to, I'll just sit on the bench then, that's fine. I don't know, it just seems slightly, I don't know, I expected more from him, to be honest. And maybe this is just bargaining to try and get that money from the wages that he's going to be losing. But part of me just thinks, come on, like, what are you doing? Just go. Like, it just seems so obvious that this isn't working. He's become this sort of meme online where anytime he touches the ball, people find a reason why it's ridiculous and why it's terrible. I just think surely it's best for everyone if he just leaves. But, you know, clearly that isn't the case at the moment. There have been other reports as well that maybe this is still a bargaining tool by West Ham. This is still something, or a bargaining tool by Maguire, and that West Ham and United could still maybe find a way to get this done, if it is, of course, the wages that are the issue. But yeah, I don't know. Is there any reason for him to stay? I don't really see it personally. Let me know your thoughts on Maguire in the comments as well. Eva says 2 more years of Lord Harry Maguire. Yeah. Alan Hire says Maguire will win the World Cup. Yeah, I don't know. Daniel Berry says pay Maguire his lost wages is balmy. Don't go near that. Right? Does that happen? Is that a common thing? What, like, I understand the concept behind it. If you signed a contract with a company, they want to terminate that contract early, or let's even do it the other way around. In the past, I've had to get rid of my broadband early because I was moving house, and the new house didn't let me have Virgin broadband. I had to just pay that contract off. I didn't get to go, actually, I'm going to do something else now, so, you know, you can just, that money that I owed you, should we just pretend that doesn't exist? So that's sort of Maguire. He's the internet service provider here who has signed the deal, who now you want to get rid of that deal, will go, well, no, I want the money that you promised you'd give me because I'm about to earn a lot less money without your custom. Does this make sense? Does this make sense, Ethan? Sort of, doesn't it? Yeah, so he's the internet service provider. You're trying to transfer to a new internet service provider, something like that. Anyway, when you want to get out of a contract, basically what I'm trying to say is you pay the rest of that contract. The person who's trying to get out of it is the one who pays it off. You don't just get to do it for free. But then I've not really heard footballers doing this that much. Is this common? Usually players go to another club, they maybe get slightly less wages, maybe get slightly more wages, but the club selling them doesn't have to sort anything out, do they? Or am I just, you know, do we not hear about it as much because it's not as sexy to slag off someone that isn't Harry Maguire? I don't know. Ryan R. Says, I'd love to hear Sir Alex Ferguson's opinion on Mason Greenwood. I feel like I know the answer, but I'd be willing to abide whatever he decides. Interesting, I'm not sure we will hear his opinion on it personally. Yap says, should have paid Maguire off. See, that's the other thing, isn't it? Some people are so desperate to get rid of him, it would have been worth spending that £7 million to do it. Gazaroo says, yes, it's normal. Why do you think Frankie de Jong is still at Barca? Well, maybe, yeah. That's what I mean. So maybe it's not as such a thing. Bill Smith says a contract is a contract. Don't blame Maguire. Blame the person who gave him the contract. The other cruel twist in all of this is the season before last, when he was playing every week, we didn't make it into the Champions League. Then the season he gets dropped, we get back in the Champions League, which then gives Maguire a boost to his wages because there's a Champions League clause in there. So the fact that he's been dropped, we've got into the Champions League, has made it even harder to sell him. There's the real bastard in all of it. The better we are, the harder it is to get better players in. GBST 1007 says, would you take a 40% pay cut, Joe? Well, yeah, exactly. And it's not a 40% pay cut to go to Real Madrid. It's a 40% pay cut to go to a team that might well get relegated this season. Like, it's not like there's no real upside in this for Harry Maguire. The one possible upside is you probably keep your place in the England squad for the Euros. But to be honest, he might keep it anyway because he's been at United on the bench for 12 months and he's still in the England team. So who knows if he'll lose it? He might have had a chat with Gareth Southgate, and he might have already promised him he can stay anyway. So who knows? Martin Stevens says, Joe, are we not getting Pavard now because of him staying? That seems to be the suggestion, yeah. Looking at it was a tweet last night, or I can't remember who it was a journalist, talking about the amortisation of everything, which is what Chelsea are doing, where basically the debt of a player is broken up into the amount of seasons that their contract is worth, and you sort of pay it off per year rather than upfront as far as your books are concerned. Basically, what it boiled down to is because of what we owe on Maguire per season, because we paid for so much from him because his contract's so big, we could only sign someone that is basically the same value as what we sell Maguire for anyway. It doesn't bring us all that much money in because we already have to spend 34 million a year on him anyway. So if we sell him for 34 million, we're sort of at a net neutral, and we've now got 34 million to spend on someone else. So without selling him, we don't have that money to spend on someone else. So yeah, I think the idea of Pavard or Todibo or whoever would be contingent on Maguire leaving, which it looks like he now won't. However, the point was also made that with an academy player like McTominay, we aren't paying anything on that yearly thing other than his wages, which are obviously substantially less. So that is a lot more clean profit where you can reinvest in and put a lot more money in because we never had the transfer fee for them in the first place. Let's move on to Amrabat. It looks as though the deal for Maguire is off, but I still feel like there's got to be a way to get him to move on. Surely it's best for him. Right, first pun of the night, Amrabattle. Thoughts? Who was that? Was it you? It was Alexi. Should have known. Producer Ethan. Fair enough. You didn't take credit for what wasn't yours, but maybe next time it could be yours. Maybe next time you could come up with a great pun like Alexi did. Maybe. Sofyan Amrabat is becoming impatient over a move to United as Liverpool begin to circle. Sofyan Amrabat is growing frustrated as Manchester United transfer stalls. United have a deal in place for Fiorentina midfielder Sofyan Amrabat, but risk the transfer falling through as they struggle to offload squad players. Personal terms have been agreed with Amrabat, and a deal has also been provisionally reached with Fiorentina for a fee in the region of £29 million, but United must sell first, and that's from 90 minutes. Separate to that, Fabrizio Romano tweeted, Liverpool are now informed on Sofyan Amrabat. No formal bid yet, just contact. They've also basically signed, I forgot his name now, he's a defensive midfielder, I believe from Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga, 30 years old. Was it Endo, isn't it? That's his name. So they've gone from Hendo to Endo, basically, in central midfield. He presumably isn't their first choice. Well, we know that they can't get their first choice because he's gone to Chelsea. We know they can't get their second choice because he's gone to Chelsea. Their third choice has also gone to Chelsea. So now they're on to fourth and fifth choices, and Endo seems to be one of them. Stuttgart, sorry, not Hoffenheim. My mistake of just listing any German football team there. This is the problem that we knew we'd find ourselves in. Do you remember at the start of the window when everyone was saying United have got around 125 million sort of net spend to work with here? Anything more than that, and it can't happen. We're sort of we're already past that. We're still trying to fight our way back to that. So we've spent around 150, 160 million. We've sold a few players. We've sold Kovar, we've sold Fred. I can't remember, I might be missing a few people, but we're selling players. We've got other people on the market. But the problem is, certain people who were seemingly up for sale at the start of the window haven't left. Maguire hasn't left. Dean Henderson hasn't left. Donny van der Beek hasn't left. All of these people that we were told all along would have to go before we could start selling people, we can't sell them. United are historically and traditionally shocking at selling players, and that's only got worse over the last 20 years. So now we're getting to the point where the players we wanted to get, like Pavard or like Amrabat, are being targeted by other clubs. And this is always the issue. United are so bad at selling players, and sometimes that's okay, because when you've got loads of money, you don't really need to sell players because you've made enough money to buy people anyway. But when you get to a point where you've spent a lot of money over the last few years and you don't have that money and you aren't getting the investment from the owners, which obviously United aren't, then you run out of availability to buy players for even 29 million, which in today's market is a steal. That's pocket change. But we ain't got any pocket change. We literally gave our last 5p to buy Rasmus Højlund, and anything else we have to sell first. So that's the position we're in at the minute. Amrabat, Liverpool are targeting him. That's according to Romano and 90 minutes. United have to sell to buy. United have to sell Maguire to get Pavard. We have to sell Donny van der Beek, maybe even McTominay, in order to get Amrabat. And at the minute, we're struggling to find suitors for any of them. And that is a very difficult position that United find themselves in, once again, because we are so bad at selling players. That is going to be all from me tonight. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for keeping it relatively peaceful and reasonable, despite people obviously putting their opinions in there, which you are more than entitled to do. That's one thing on this channel. We will always let people have their opinions. That is going to be all from me. My name is Joe. This has been Stretford Paddock. We'll be back tomorrow with an absolutely massive day, by the way. Everyone who's watching this, we've got some incredible videos coming out tomorrow. We've got the news. We've got a special interview with a former Manchester United coach coming up as well, which will be fantastic. We've also got the new podcast, Off the Bar, as well, that we saw the first episode of last week. We've got a new episode coming out tomorrow. All sorts going on. And it will all be here on Stretford Paddock, so hit subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Joe. This is Stretford Paddock Transfers Live. We'll see you in a bit.